This man's name is Wade Wilson. He killed a woman by running over her with a car several times. And earlier that same day, he strangled another woman he had only known for a day. In court, he sat and admitted that he wanted her to turn into spaghetti and said he did it because I wanted to. Yes, he is an absolute psychopath who should be sentenced to life in prison. There should be no mercy for people like him. However, some people on TikTok began to feel sorry for him and were calling for his release, even though everyone knew what he had done before. What's shocking is that in the comments under the videos featuring him, people were defending him, even though he specifically targeted and killed women. Today, we're going to break down the crime he committed, why he reminds people of Deadpool from the Deadpool movie, and why some have started to defend him. I promise this video will be interesting because such crimes deserve a full movie, not just a YouTube video. Wade Wilson, who by the way shares the same name as the main character from Deadpool, was born in Florida in 1994. For unknown reasons, he was an orphan and it's unclear what happened to his biological parents. But it is known that he lived with his adoptive parents, Steve and Candice Wilson, in the Florida capital of Tallahassee. He attended Deer Lake Middle School, where Wilson wasn't problematic and just studied like a normal student. His family loved him, and even though he was raised by adoptive parents, Wilson never lacked attention or experienced any ill intentions from them. His parents always spoiled him, loved him, and wanted the best for him. They had a nice suburban home, a beautiful car, and most importantly, love and support. But in 2007, Wilson graduated from middle school, and in 2008 he was transferred to high school where all of his problematic sides began to surface. It started when he stole his parents' car in the middle of the night while everyone was asleep. At school, he became quite popular due to his inappropriate behavior and bullying, such as trespassing and car theft. Because of this, even students who didn't personally know him spoke badly about him, and some refused to comment on his actions altogether. He didn't do it for financial gain, it was simply something he enjoyed doing. Wilson surrounded himself with problematic friends during his childhood, and at school he loved hanging out in groups where he made these friends. Among Wilson's circle were girls he personally hung out with during lunch, and they later shared stories of how awful and disgusting he was as a person in school. When they sat at the lunch table in the school canteen, no one was eating, he was just passing drugs to others. Wilson's friends and Wilson himself wore a black hoodie with the hood up. According to his high school girlfriend, Wilson was creepy and walked around the school dressed like that. At the age of 14, Wilson had already started using illegal substances even though they were banned in Florida until the age of 21. He smoked these substances in the forest, in the school bathroom, and anywhere he could. One day, because of him, the toilet paper in the bathroom caught fire and Wilson was expelled from high school. He had no respect for authority and always loved flirting with girls, even if he was in a relationship. Wilson and his high school girlfriend met because they were part of the same friend group. He didn't respect her and cheated on her. One day at school, an incident happened with his girlfriend. During a break, she left her backpack in a classroom and stepped out into the hallway for a few minutes. When she returned, she noticed that the money had been stolen from her bag. She immediately suspected Wilson, but he just mocked her in front of the entire class and made fun of her. As the couple grew older, they decided to break up due to constant fighting. However, after the breakup, Wilson didn't feel any sadness or even the slightest regret. On the contrary, he continued hitting on girls, and in 2018 he found himself another girlfriend named Kelly Matthews, who didn't really know much about his past or character. Matthews didn't even care to learn about his past or who he really was, because in the beginning he treated her well and there was no aggression from Wilson. They lived together and dated for several months, but that changed when February came around. In February, it was Matthew's birthday, a day she had been waiting for a long time, hoping for some kind of gift from her boyfriend. However, that day Wilson wasn't thinking about it all. Instead, he deceived her, luring her to her car and kidnapping her. She wasn't expecting anything bad from Wilson and was hoping for something pleasant, until he parked the car in a secluded spot, suddenly pushed her onto the floor of the car, cut her clothes with a knife, and ordered her to stay there while he moved her to the back seat. Matthews didn't understand what was happening and kept asking questions, but Wilson simply started sexually assaulting her, ignoring her pleas. As Matthews resisted, Wilson's threats escalated. He beat her face all over, including her chin, leaving her with broken lips after the incident. He also stuffed her mouth, covered her face with a shirt, and tied her hands and feet with a used trash bag inside the car. Later, these men drove through a McDonald's while completely naked, with Matthews tied up in a backseat of her own car. Her leg was broken because he had slammed it against the door. After some time, Matthews fortunately managed to escape from the maniac. She was 100 miles away from home and tried to find someone who could help her. After some searching, she was lucky to find people who immediately called the police and an ambulance. She was taken to the hospital where she stayed for many days, and even lost her job because her workplace believed she was lying and just skipping work. While in the hospital, Matthews reached out to police and she had physical evidence. She had even taken photos of her injuries and provided them to the officers, and there were many of Wilson's fingerprints on her body, but the detectives simply told her they wouldn't investigate the case, saying that she had participated in it as well. Matthews was convinced that if the detectives had started an investigation and followed through, future victims could have been prevented. But no, the police let her down and refused to investigate, despite the numerous injuries she had sustained. This negligence later had tragic consequences for others. Wilson remained free for several months until the moment came when he was finally caught. On October 7th, about 6 months after breaking up with Matthews, Wilson arranged to meet a woman named Christine Melton at the Buddha Life Bar in Fort Myers. Christine Melton and Wilson had been chatting online before, and Melton wasn't a local to Cape Coral. She was just visiting from another city in Colorado. Before coming to Cape Coral, she had worked as a waitress in one of Colorado's restaurants, as she didn't have much money to support herself. Though she didn't have children of her own, she loved kids and was the type of person who could easily step in as a mother figure. She was also a cat lover. While working as a waitress, Melton met a girl named Stephanie Sailors, who became a close friend. Stephanie joined her for the meeting with Wilson at the bar. The three of them had a good time, chatting and staying until late, until the bar closed. After the bar closed, Wilson and the two women went to a rented house to continue hanging out, staying there until the morning. In the morning, they headed to Melton's house where they spent some more time together before they all prepared to sleep. Stephanie, however, decided that she had had enough and left to go home. Wilson and Melton went to sleep in Melton's bed. After some time, Wilson woke up first and suddenly began choking Melton while she was asleep. She woke up in shock and tried to resist, but unfortunately, she wasn't strong enough to fight him off and she died from suffocation. After making sure Melton was dead, Wilson took her car keys, stole her car from the garage, and headed toward Cape Coral. On the way, the killer saw 43-year-old Diane Ruiz walking to her job at a bar. He asked her for directions to the nearest school and lured her into the car. The next thing he did was lock the doors so she couldn't get out. Ruiz struggled desperately to escape, screaming, "Let me out!" But Wilson didn't release her. Instead, he attacked her, beat her, and eventually pushed her out of the car. Wilson then ran over Ruiz's body with the car more than 10 to 20 times, crushing her until she was, in his words, like spaghetti. It was a horrifying scene, and her death was not immediate. This innocent woman likely suffered terribly before passing away. Ruiz was a mother of two sons, one 29 years old and the other 19. She worked at a bar where she had been employed for 5 years, never missing a day of work and always being responsible. She had been looking forward to a debut performance with the school band that very day. After the murder, Wilson fled the scene, seemingly feeling nothing. Along the way, he called his adoptive father Steve and began recounting the details of his crimes with a smile and laughter, as if he had done something funny rather than committed something horrific. Steve, though shocked and heartbroken deep down, reacted calmly and decided to take the right course of action. While talking to Wilson, Steve secretly called the police from his wife's phone, putting the second phone on speaker so the officers could hear everything Wilson was saying. After Wilson finished telling his story, Steve asked him for his location, pretending that he would send him an Uber to bring him home. Instead, Steve passed this information to the police, helping them narrow down Wilson's whereabouts. Officers quickly began a statewide manhunt and headed to the location Wilson had mentioned during the call. By the time police figured out his location, location and dispatched officers, Wilson had already left. However, they soon received a tip that Wilson was near a local dinner. An officer who was nearby arrived at the dinner and spotted Melton's stolen car parked outside with Wilson sitting inside. The police approached the car and told Wilson they were there to discuss an incident that had occurred earlier that morning. Wilson claimed he was just waiting for his girlfriend. The police informed him that they were going to detain him, not arrest him, and asked him to remain in the car until backup arrived. As a precaution, the officer asked Wilson for the car keys, but Wilson argued for a long time, refusing to hand them over. After a heated exchange, Wilson started the car and fled. Later, a call came into the police station from a local business owner, reporting that someone had broken into the building, assaulted someone with a knife, and was covered in blood. The police quickly realized it was Wilson and dispatched units to the scene. However, when they arrived, Wilson was gone. After reviewing security footage, the police discovered that Wilson had broken into a random home through a window. The police on the scene contacted the business and advised them to evacuate the building because they couldn't legally enter the home without a warrant. Wilson agreed to surrender, but only after speaking with his father. He stayed in the house for about an hour, during which he ate popcorn, stole some of the homeowner's clothes, and then eventually the police arrested him. His first trial took place in 2019, and his close ones couldn't believe how this man could commit so many crimes in one day and even kill 2 people. Doctors wanted to study what was going on in his mind and what could have driven him to such actions. The man had gone so far off the rails that in just one day he killed 2 people, stole a car, broke into a stranger's home, stole clothes, and created chaos inside. I can't imagine what would have happened if the homeowner had been there. During interrogation, Wilson responded, "I would do it again if I had the chance." As a result, they took him in for an MRI scan because doctors suspected he might have a traumatic brain injury. However, after the MRI, several diagnoses were revealed that are uncommon for ordinary people. He did not appear to be a normal person. He was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizoaffective disorder, and other mental illnesses. In simple terms, he could do anything without feeling any emotion except joy. He could kill a person and feel no more guilt than if he'd squashed a mosquito. Interestingly, proof of his mental state lies on his numerous tattoos. Each tattoo on his body holds some deep meaning, but all of them suggest something negative rather than positive. Some women on TikTok even started falling for this madman because of his tattoos. Some of his tattoos resemble those of a racist prison group that promotes white supremacy. Others could signify symbols from Nazi Germany in 20th century or gestures of their dictator. There are more harmless ones too, like the letters NMM on his left jaw, which might reference Wade Wilson from Deadpool, earning him the nickname Deadpool Killer. At Wilson's trial, he initially faced a lengthy sentence, but people voted for life imprisonment, and thus the Deadpool Killer was sentenced to life. Yet even in prison, he couldn't stay out of trouble. On September 30th, 2020, while Wilson was already in prison, he attempted another crime. After killing 2 people, Wilson was placed in a 10x10 cell in Lee County. A small 10x10 foot square with only a place to sleep, cold water, a small hatch for food delivery, and a ventilation window. Perhaps the best condition for serial killers and psychopaths with no sense of morality. Wilson shared this cell with another inmate named Joseph Katz, who had likely committed a serious crime like Wilson. On September 30th, the 2 of them tried to escape. Another inmate who shared a cell with someone involved in their escape plan reported them. This inmate was Lauren Curtis Sawyer. Curtis and Wilson were connected through the criminal organization The Unforgiven, a prison gang founded to promote racism against people with dark skin and aimed to prove white supremacy. This connection was evident in Wilson's tattoo, which resembled the symbol of the group. Wilson joined the ranks soon after entering prison. One day of the escape, Curtis received a letter from Wilson asking him to arrange a car or any transportation so they could escape. They planned to organize the vehicle that night or in the early hours of the next morning. To escape their cell, Wilson and Katz removed a metal stool that was tightly bolted to the floor and used it as a hammer. They removed the vent cover from the window and then used a stool to break the thick glass behind it. This was discovered when guards entered and saw a crack in the window. After this incident, Wilson was moved to another cell and investigators launched an investigation, charging Wilson with 2 more crimes for the escape attempt and causing damage, as he was the organizer. Yet he didn't stop there and was caught in another incident in prison in 2023. On April 20, 2023, several police officers were conducting their usual inspection of Lee County's prison intake center. During the process, they found 2 suspicious bags and sent them for further examination. After the tests, it was discovered that the bags contained cigarettes, suspected drugs, lighters, and pills. Following this incident, inspections of all cells and interrogations began. The result was that an inmate who had received special privileges for his reliability and responsibility had passed these bags to another inmate, who then sold them to Wilson and another inmate. Officials reviewed recorded phone calls between inmates and found that Wilson had been discussing drugs with someone named Bonnie Wiggins. The police then conducted a covert investigation, observing Wiggins and 3 other suspects outside the prison. As a result, 6 people were arrested, including Wilson, on drug-related charges. Following this incident, the cases of Melton, Ruiz, and Matthews were re-examined, and a new trial was held in 2024 for Wade Wilson with the aim of increasing his punishment to the death penalty. In this case, Wilson was transferred to death row, where he would be under strict surveillance and no one would allow him to escape again. However, after his trial was widely shared across platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and others, Wilson gained global notoriety. Following this, his prison cell was flooded with messages from numerous fans. It's estimated that the killer received around 4,000 messages. In a letter dated June 28, Heidi Cox, whose return address was in California, asked the judge to sentence Wilson to life imprisonment without parole instead of the death penalty. As someone who unconditionally cares for Wade, I have deeply reflected on the seriousness of the situation and the consequences of your decision. While I understand the gravity of the crime committed, I believe that a life sentence would give Wade the opportunity to reflect, repent, and contribute positively within the prison system. Moreover, life imprisonment would allow his family, as well as me, to maintain a relationship with Wade. It would allow us to visit him, correspond, and continue providing emotional support. A privilege that would be lost with the death penalty. Choosing life without parole would not only uphold justice, but also preserve our humanity during these difficult times, she wrote. We are committed to supporting Wade on his path of redemption and rehabilitation, whatever it may lead. In another letter, Lindsey Brand from Canada claimed that while she had no authority to speak on the matter, she hoped the judge would consider Wilson's mental health issues and prescribe treatment. I'm not saying she shouldn't serve time for the crimes he committed, but I'm not sure that the death penalty is the best option, she wrote. It will still leave Mr. Wilson in the prison system for years on death row, and he will still have mental health issues. This won't solve the problem or the person, and it won't bring back the 2 women he killed. Thousands of messages supporting Wade Wilson were sent in his defense, mostly from women who desperately tried to defend him despite the irreparable harm he had caused, which the families and loved ones of Ruiz and Melton will never forget. When Melton went to the bar that night, she probably thought she had found someone who would protect her for life, someone who would be with her, but instead she encountered someone who ended her life for his own desires. The same goes for Ruiz, who had a family and long-awaited goals, and a loving family who lost her because some psychopath decided he enjoyed tormenting and killing people for no reason. That's why I wouldn't justify him for his mental health or anything else. The death penalty is the mildest punishment someone like this deserves. What do you think about this? Write your thoughts in the comments, I'd love to hear your opinions. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.